In the heart of the 14th century, the world was vast, mysterious, and largely unknown. Oceans stretched endlessly into the horizon, deserts whispered secrets of forgotten empires, and the trade routes of the Silk Road pulsed with the lifeblood of civilizations. It was a time before compasses could truly guide a man across continents, when curiosity itself was the greatest map of all. In the small Moroccan city of Tangier, a young man named Ibn Battuta looked out over the endless blue of the Atlantic. He was just 21, not a warrior, not a king, but a student of faith, driven by a longing far greater than fear. His dream was simple, yet boundless: to see the world, to seek knowledge, and to understand the people of every land under the sun. Born in 1304, Ibn Battuta grew up in a family of scholars and judges. The world around him was filled with tales of merchants returning from distant lands, stories of golden cities, holy shrines, and the fragrance of spices from India and the Orient. Each tale ignited his imagination until the quiet streets of Tangier could no longer contain him. In June 1325, he made the decision that would change his life forever. He set out alone, without wealth, without an army, only with faith in his heart and a notebook in his hand. His destination: Mecca, the holy city, over 4,000 kilometers away. The road was long and dangerous, filled with bandits, deserts, and disease. Yet, as Ibn Battuta would later write, a traveler without observation is like a bird without wings. His first journey led him across the Maghreb, through Algeria and Tunisia, a world of bustling markets, storytellers, and ancient fortresses. The golden sands of the Sahara shimmered under the heat, and the caravans he joined were like moving cities, filled with traders and travelers bound by the same purpose: to reach the next horizon. When he reached Cairo, he was awestruck. The city was alive with life: towering minarets, the call to prayer echoing over the Nile, scholars debating in the great mosques, and merchants shouting over the chaos of the bazaar. For the first time, Ibn Battuta realized that the world was far bigger, more beautiful, and more complex than he had ever imagined. In Cairo, he met scholars and mystics who spoke of the vast lands beyond: Syria, Persia, India, even China. Every conversation expanded his curiosity, like a flame feeding on wind. But first he had to complete his pilgrimage. He joined a caravan bound for Mecca, crossing the vast desert of the Sinai and then the lands of Arabia. The journey was harsh. Sandstorms tore across the dunes, and hunger often haunted the travelers at night. Yet through faith and perseverance, he reached Mecca, where thousands of pilgrims gathered from every corner of the Muslim world. It was a moment of awe and unity, a sight that changed him forever. In Mecca, Ibn Battuta could have ended his journey. He had fulfilled his religious duty, but deep inside he felt that his path was just beginning. Surrounded by travelers from Africa, Persia, and India, he realized that every pilgrim carried the story of another world, and he wanted to see them all. So he made a decision that no one from Tangier had ever made before. He would keep traveling. He would explore every land he could reach. He would become the eyes of his generation, the man who saw the world. And thus, the greatest journey in human history had only just begun. The desert winds had carried Ibn Battuta to Mecca, but what came next would define him forever. After his pilgrimage, he looked to the horizon and saw destiny waiting beyond Arabia. The world was vast and his heart still restless. "I set out alone, trusting my fate to God," he would later write. And those words marked the beginning of his voyage through the East. Leaving the holy cities behind, Ibn Battuta joined caravans heading through the Persian Gulf. He entered Iraq, Persia, and the lands once ruled by the great Mongol empires. The cities he saw were like living museums. Baghdad, still echoing with the glory of its golden age, where scholars quoted poetry beside the Tigris River, and markets shimmered with silk, gold, and rare spices. In Shiraz, he witnessed Persian culture at its height: music, art, and gardens designed to mirror paradise itself. Yet beyond the beauty lay chaos. The Mongol conquests had shattered kingdoms, and the world was rebuilding. Ibn Battuta moved carefully, guided by faith and diplomacy. He learned that travel was not only about movement, It was about survival, humility, and learning from every encounter. From Persia, his journey curved south toward the East African coast, a place of wonder few men from the West had seen. He sailed across the Indian Ocean, landing in Mogadishu, a city alive with trade and color. There the sultans wore silk robes embroidered with gold, and the harbors were filled with ships from India, Arabia, and China. He marveled at the unity of cultures, Arab merchants trading with African kings, languages blending into songs, and mosques rising beside palm trees. Ibn Battuta called Mogadishu one of the most beautiful cities in the world. From there, he continued down the Swahili coast to Kilwa, a kingdom of coral palaces and turquoise seas. The beauty was breathtaking. The Indian Ocean glimmered like a mirror of heaven, but Ibn Battuta's heart was drawn eastward, to the lands of the Indus and the Ganges, and so he set sail again into the monsoon winds. After weeks at sea, his ship reached the western coast of India, the land he had heard about since childhood. The port of Calicut was alive with 1,000 colors, elephants adorned in gold, merchants from China, and Hindu temples ringing with bells. Ibn Battuta wrote that, "India is a land of miracles, where every city holds a world of its own." He journeyed inland to Delhi, where the mighty Sultan Muhammad bin Tughlaq ruled. The Sultan, known for his genius and unpredictability, welcomed Ibn Battuta as a man of knowledge and offered him a position as a judge, Qadi, in his royal court. It was an honor beyond imagination. A traveler from Morocco now serving as a judge in one of the largest empires on earth. For nearly a decade, Ibn Battuta lived in India. He witnessed palaces of marble, gardens that stretched like paradise, and the splendor of a civilization both spiritual and vast. But court life was not always peaceful. The Sultan's temper was fierce, and the politics of Delhi were dangerous. Soon Ibn Battuta longed again for the open road, for the call of adventure and the freedom of the sea. In 1343, he left India as an ambassador to the Emperor of China, sent by the Sultan himself. His journey took him across the ocean to the Maldives, a chain of islands shimmering like emeralds in the blue sea. The people there welcomed him as a scholar, and once again he became a judge, and even married a local woman. But paradise, too, could not hold him. Restless once more, he sailed onward to Ceylon, Sri Lanka, where he climbed the sacred mountain known as Adam's Peak, said to hold the footprint of the first man. From the mountain's summit, he looked across the horizon and whispered a prayer for all travelers who walk alone. Then came one of the most perilous parts of his journey. His ship was caught in a storm near the Bay of Bengal, and he was shipwrecked. Lost and penniless, Ibn Battuta wandered through the jungles of southern India, relying on strangers for food. Yet even in despair, he refused to turn back. "Every hardship is a test of faith," he wrote, "and the road always leads to knowledge." After surviving shipwreck and hardship, Ibn Battuta reached the shores of Southeast Asia, the islands of Sumatra, Java, and the Malayan archipelago. These lands were filled with unfamiliar faces, spices, and customs. The Muslim traders who ruled the ports welcomed him warmly, and he marveled at how faith connected distant worlds. Finally, after years of travel, he arrived in China, the fabled land of silk and dragons. The cities of Hangzhou and Quanzhou astonished him. Paved streets, porcelain markets, and canals that stretched farther than the eye could see. He admired Chinese craftsmanship, their discipline, and their devotion to order and beauty. It was unlike any place he had ever known. For Ibn Battuta, China was both the end of the world and a revelation. He stood on the edge of the Pacific Ocean, realizing he had traveled farther than any man of his time. From Morocco to China, across deserts, mountains, and oceans, his life had become a living map of the medieval world. At the height of his travels, Ibn Battuta had crossed more than 120,000 kilometers, visiting kingdoms that no single explorer had ever connected before. He had seen the deserts of Arabia, the palaces of India, the jungles of Africa, and the ports of China, and yet his journey was not over. A traveler's heart never rests. And as the winds shifted once more, he turned his eyes back toward home, back to Morocco, where it had all begun. After decades of wandering across the continents, Ibn Battuta's journey began to circle back, not toward an end, but toward meaning. The oceans he had crossed, the mountains he had climbed, and the people he had met had shaped him into something far beyond a traveler. He had become a bridge, connecting worlds that had never known each other before. From the coasts of China, Ibn Battuta began his long voyage home. The seas were treacherous and the winds unpredictable. He retraced parts of his route through Southeast Asia and India, where familiar faces had changed, and kingdoms had risen and fallen in the years since his departure. He paused once again in Mecca, the city where his dream had begun nearly 3 decades earlier. As he stood among the pilgrims, he realized how far he had come, not just in distance, but in spirit. He had seen the unity of faith that stretched across continents, the endless diversity of human life, and the beauty that connected all creation. From Arabia, he traveled north through Syria and Palestine, visiting Jerusalem, the city of prophets. There, he walked through the sacred courtyards of Al-Aqsa Mosque, where generations before him had prayed. In every step, he felt the echo of history and his place within it. He then journeyed to Constantinople, the city where East met West, a fortress of marble and gold. The Byzantine towers reflected in the Bosphorus waters as traders shouted in a dozen tongues. It was there that Ibn Battuta felt the weight of his own story. He was not merely an observer of the world, but its storyteller. In the year 1354, after 29 years of travel, Ibn Battuta finally returned to his homeland, Tangier. The streets that had once felt endless now seemed small beneath his feet. The familiar call to prayer echoed through the same alleys where his childhood dreams had been born. Yet the young man who had left was gone. In his place stood a man who had seen the world. His parents had passed away during his absence. His heart ached with both grief and gratitude. Grief for the moments lost, and gratitude for the life he had lived. He had traveled through 44 modern countries, crossed oceans, deserts, and empires, and now he was home. But his journey was far from forgotten. The Sultan of Morocco, Abu Inan Faris, hearing of Ibn Battuta's legendary travels, invited him to the royal court in Fez. There, the Sultan commanded a scholar named Ibn Juzai to record his adventures. And together they created one of the greatest travel books in history, Rihla, The Journey. For months, Ibn Battuta dictated his memories, not as a conqueror, but as a witness of humanity. His words painted vivid portraits of every land he had crossed: the markets of Cairo, the palaces of Delhi, the coral mosques of Africa, and the silent mountains of China. His stories were not only of geography, but of hearts, of kindness, generosity, and the endless curiosity of mankind. He wrote of kings and beggars, of scholars and sailors, of deserts that swallowed men, and oceans that carried dreams. The Rihla became more than a record. It became a window into a world before maps, before borders, before nations. Through his words, the 14th century came alive, filled with color, sound, and soul. As the years passed, Ibn Battuta grew old. The same feet that had walked across the world now trembled beneath him. But his spirit, the spirit of the traveler, never faded. In his later years, he continued to teach, to share his wisdom, and to inspire young minds to seek knowledge beyond their horizons. He often said, "Traveling, it leaves you speechless, then turns you into a storyteller." Sometime around 1368 or 1369, in the quiet of his homeland, Ibn Battuta's journey came to an end. No grand monuments mark his grave, no empire bears his name, and yet his story endures stronger than stone. He did not conquer lands, he connected them. He did not seek power, he sought understanding, and in doing so, he became immortal. Today, centuries later, Ibn Battuta's name is spoken across the world, in museums, in books, in classrooms, and in the dreams of modern travelers. His journey covered more ground than Marco Polo or any explorer before the modern age, from the sands of the Sahara to the palaces of Beijing. He proved that the greatest adventure is not to escape the world, but to know it. And that true discovery lies not in finding new lands, but in seeing with new eyes.